The dead don't think anything, they don't dare move, they don't speak, but survivors speak for them to celebrate their life and death. That's why they exist. Noah met Chris on the day of a homecoming, impressed by the connection the living could have with the dead. Playing the flute, Chris looked mesmerized, bridging the gap between these primordial realms. Shortly after, Noah applied to become an Overseer himself, but only years later was he able to ask why Chris looked so sad that day. Why wasn't he happy for the soldier he was sending off? After all, he was finally free from Moebius' shackles, returning to the Queen's embrace, as they say. Let's think about it. Reaching your life's expiry date, surviving through so many battles, maybe homecoming is a tragedy in disguise. Look at Noah's face here. He was so sad in her homecoming, knowing that he would never see Mio ever again, as she was forever lost from circulation. More so than anything, homecoming is being unable to choose your end, merely accepting what comes next. I don't think there is any joy in a contrived death. Do you honestly believe that he was happy to disappear for such trivial reasons, that his smile belied no doubt? To me, he looked ready to cry.
I think he probably felt content. Content? He had lived through it all, fought hard, and in serving his colony, he found purpose. I find it's quite a tragic thing.
But why? I mean, it was time for him to return home.
What do you think that entails?
Huh?
Reaching your life's expiry date. Surviving through so many battles.
Well,
Do you honestly believe he was happy to disappear for such trivial reasons?
Partly due to our conditioning, we all believe in these three assumptions as we go about living our lives. I'm a separate entity, a self, in a world of other distinct entities. My happiness and unhappiness depend on the interaction of myself and these other entities. I rely on my presumed ability to understand and predict how this world works in order to influence those interactions in a way that maximizes my happiness and minimizes my suffering. Now, I want you to think about it. Isn't that all we do in life? Craving after love, attention, material comforts, influence, power, happiness. Wanting things to be different than what they are. Believing that as a self we need to influence the external world into a configuration that will make us and our loved ones happy. And when you inevitably fail at doing so, when the world doesn't always bend to your will, this happens.
I thought our lives were like our music. Always in our hands, under our control. I wasn't facing the truth. Even if I could reach people, I wouldn't be able to save them. It's unbearable. Seeing life slip away from you. Even though they're right there. What am I even doing?
Suffering. The feeling that the world has wronged you. Neither Pneuma nor Logos is exempt from it. Both Anne and Noah suffered through hell after being powerless in saving the ones they loved. They were both disillusioned with these three assumptions we've talked about. Noah realized how exercising your free will to choose cannot fix all of humanity's problems, as the world is an unseemly place and there's only so much you can do to bend it to your will. Your life is not like your music, not always in your hands, under your control. While N had to realize how the allure of eternity, of security and certainty are illusions in a world of impermanence and unpredictability of the future. You cannot grasp after happiness and contain it in a single moment. As we've seen with M, that will only become your prison. But there's one person, Moebius Chris, is one of the rare examples of someone who can see through the source of both N and Noah's illusions. Underneath the enigmatic and concise writing, Chris is one of the wisest beings in Aionios, even surpassing Ouroboros' progressive ideology in the long term, which I will prove to you.
Your sworn mission is to change this world, is it not?
Yes.
And is that because you're unhappy with the way it is?
It's wrong, and we have to correct it. That is all.
I see. So relentless desire is what drives you.
Desire?
You fight for betterment, for ever greater aspirations.
And what's wrong with that?
Nothing at all. It's human nature, after all. But you still don't understand. There's something you must learn.
What's that?
To be content with one's lot.
What do you mean?
Relentless desire, wanting things to be different than what they are, not being satisfied with what you have in the present moment. Just like the Buddha said, craving is the immediate cause of suffering. See, Chris wasn't just Noah's off-seeing teacher, but also his Zen master. As hard as it was to accept, Noah needed to realize how even the desire for the greater good could be a double-edged sword. Chris used the phrase, to be content with one's lot. But there's actually a better technical term for it in Buddhism. Equanimity, the non-reactivity to pleasure and pain. Shinzen Yang, a popular mindfulness teacher, formulates the importance of equanimity in the following way.
It's radical non-interference with the natural flow of sensory experience. So if you have emotions in the body, you don't push them down, but you don't latch on to them inappropriately either. It's a sort of non-pushing and pulling, a hands-off with regards to the flow of your senses.
Which does not for a moment imply being hands-off regarding the flow of events outside. People are suffering in Aionios. You can and should fight for them, as Noah and the Ouroboros is doing. So equanimity is not an excuse for passivity, but you should act in the world from a position of strength, not weakness, craving, and relentless desire, as Chris puts it. Because the flip side of desire is ambition. To illustrate this principle, we need to look at Klaus's world in Origin's Memory. These people destroyed the world under the banner of betterment. When you ask these corporations like Vector, who worked on the conduit, or Klaus himself, who pressed a button to achieve his ambitions, why did they do it? They will tell you that relentless desire had driven them, and they were doing it for the greater good with good intentions, that their ambitions meant to serve humanity. But actions speak louder than words. We know that their actions resulted in destroying this planet and its people. This is exactly what Chris is talking about. When desire is not balanced with equanimity, you can't see the forest from the trees. Your ambition consumes you. So let's just take an honest look. No one can deny Noah is a visionary, a revolutionary within the confines of Aionios. When people like Juniper, Ashira, and M had resigned themselves to their fate, Noah was the one who tried to be a ray of hope in the darkness as an ambitious philosopher. As Takahashi-san said, he was an Übermensch, Nietzsche's version of self-actualized person, fighting against nihilism by manifesting his reality. Now, that's all well and good, but that's also an endless cycle, as Chris says. Betterment or desire is like a horse you need to control as a rider. You can't just let it follow its whims on a lark, as there's always room for improvement. Whenever you get the thing you wanted in life, you will find yourself complaining about something else. You will yearn for more.
Ambition leads to pride. Even when they'd been granted limitless freedom. Even having built the perfect world for themselves. Humans yet desired the beyond. And then, the world became the way it is now.
It's obviously a scam! Wherever you go, it's the same! You leave them, it only ends one way. What crimes have their victims ever committed? What did they do? They weren't given a single choice. They were just trying to make the most of each moment, like us. What you're talking of doing would make you exactly the same as Moebius. Exactly the same. If you build a new world on that foundation, it'll only end one way. Like this.
That's why the Origin's new world won't fix Noah's dissatisfaction. Injustice, inequality, and bad people will continue to exist in this new world of Origin. Maybe not as crude as Moebius, but they'll be there. And what is ironic is that the world Noah wants to create is not even a perfect utopia to begin with, which is precisely why Chris brings up Joran and Shania.
Only the strong can ever hope to reach the fabled horizon that you seek. Your words must be backed up by strength in equal measure. Winner's logic.
But birds, what can they possibly know of how a lowly worm feels?
Exactly. How can birds understand how a lowly worm feels? How can Noah guarantee that Joran and Shania will have a great life in this new world? The truth is that he can't. No one can. In fact, it is very hard for us to separate our point of view when we look at the world. We tend to think that all of us have similar chances as long as we put in the work and practice. After all, you think if I succeeded, so can the 99% that failed. They just didn't work hard enough, right? No, that's an illusion of capitalism. The system is designed so that success is reserved only for the lucky few. The truth is that we all have unique strengths and weaknesses. Some of us are birds, good at flying. Some of us are worms, adept at crawling. Some people can never achieve their goals because of limited resources, lack of skill, or even luck. Other people can get in the way as we live in a competitive world, not unlike Ionios. And that's where Moebius comes in. Moebius offers the weak another chance to retry with endless reincarnations. If something happened and you messed up, that's alright. Zed can always rewind the clock back to the start via Kratos and Ionios. How can Noah console someone like Joran and Shania when their hopes and dreams didn't pan out the way they wanted in Origin's new world? As Zed says, if the results satisfy, it is well and good, but if they do not satisfy, what then? Will you weep, battered by grief, or howl, seething with rage? Have you never prayed that time would simply stop? As worms, Joran and Shania will be shackled by their fates. No resets, single lifetime, no takebacks. After all, not everyone is as handsome, talented, and confident as Noah. Manifesting his reality is significantly easier for someone like him, precisely because we live in such an unpredictable world that it is hard for the birds to understand how limiting and scary a single lifetime can be for the worms.
You dream of living out your days in peace. You want to protect the natural way of life. All that shite is a right afforded only to the powerful! What about those who can't live in peace, huh? Are they meant to survive in all this chaos until the very day they die? I have not one thing to my name. I don't even have the power to choose. Screw it.
What would you have become of the weak? Would you abandon them? You would refute their everything? End their story there?
Moebius are the ones doing that.
Noah, what you're trying to achieve here amounts to the same thing. You really think freeing Origin will revive the world and solve all of our problems?
What's so natural about the life you want? A life you only get one shot at? At any point, someone could come along and tell you, okay, that's it, time to go.
And who are you to say that life's worse?
I know more than you. It's madness wanting a world like that. The best world for us is a world that at least gives us another go. We fail, we try again. We might even do better next time round.
At least initially, Shania looks very similar to Senna. After all, they both had their role models, Gondor and Mio, looking up to them even, but their approach in working towards that ideal weren't even remotely similar. While Senna lacked confidence, she respected Mio in the midst of her identity confusion. She didn't label herself as a worm, but a bird by choice. On the other hand, Shania envied Gondor's success. Her friendship was superficial at best, and she was crushed underneath her mother's high expectations of her. Point blank, Gondor was better at fighting. But that's alright, because Shania never wanted to fight in the first place. She was an artist, portraying moments of life with drawing and colors. Expressing her emotions with creativity on a piece of paper was what she wanted to do with her life. I don't know if you know, but there is a saying, everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And this world of Ionios was much harder to bear for people like Shania. She felt like a fish, unable to climb. Her envy for Gondor, who had the power to choose, who had the luxury to do what she wanted in life, only got worse with time. Shania could see the desperation in Senna's eyes, the desire to be approved by one's parents or peers, not feeling good enough. Just as her mother said, the Reed's family's honor was at stake. She never felt approved or loved, especially when her mother said how she wanted her late great older sister, Tatiana, to be here right now to restore their legacy. Shania broke down completely.
We are one of the 6 houses. The Reed family honor is at stake.
Gondor was first place.
If only dear Titania were still alive. Some legacy this is.
This scene is a great illustration of how the rift between people are warping their perceptions. Gondor didn't understand how her existing talents when it comes to fighting made her attitude resilient. Birds can't understand how there are no support pillars for worms in a world where everyone expects you to fly. Gondor had it easier than Shania, and this is why Senna backed her up.
She was always trying to please her mum. No, trying to live up to her mum's expectations. This ain't a sympathy vote, though. You're so strong, more than me. That doesn't even factor. It's your attitude that matters. I hate to break it to you, but that's being strong. I was born with a gift, and I'm using it is all.
And if you hadn't been born with it?
Right now, all these city people are frozen, just like a painting in a still frame. Maybe one of the things that Shania failed to consider is, if you hate this world so much, then destroy it to recreate it in your own image, so that no other artist like you is forced to fight ever again. See, that's the fundamental difference between Senna and Shania. Both of them felt disdain and hatred for this world. Both of them had inferiority complex, but only Senna transmuted that emotion into something healthy with Ouroboros, while Shania could only perpetuate the suffering with Moebius.
If you really hate this world, why aren't you trying to tear it down yourself? Change it with your own hands.
I told you, I'll wreck every last thing.
You can do it differently. There's still a way you can change. And that way, the world will fall away by itself.
While her mother was distant and cold, her father just wanted to see her little girl happy. He could see that Shania had sadness in her eyes. She must have felt responsible after Tatiana's death to continue her legacy as an Ouroboros. Her mother was certainly not giving her any slack as an only child now. But for me, after seeing her father just now, telling her to drop the gun and giving her a brush, encouraging Shania to do what she loves in this godforsaken world, was just so beautiful that it reminds me why I love this game so much.
Is that Titania's gun, Shania?
Yeah. She's not around anymore. I have to do what I can.
Shania, put it down.
Huh?
Put the gun down.
Okay.
Wouldn't you prefer something a little more like this?
Huh? But...
Daddy just wants to see his daughter enjoying doing the things she loves the most.
Papa.
Go on.
Just look at the next scene where her mother goes on about how pathetic of a child Shania turned out to be. While Monica was barely able to restrain herself from doing something she would regret, Senna says how she's baffled, how the warmth they felt at the hospital doesn't last, and mothers aren't actually closer to their child at all. She thought how that connection was the answer they were looking for as Ouroboros. It is an illusion. It is true that a child is born of the parents, but that's all it is. Unfortunately, Shania wasn't able to use the brush her father gave her because of her mother. Which leads us to Chris's point to Noah. Even if you get rid of Moebius in Origin's New World, the selfishness and lack of empathy will continue. People like Shania's mother will continue to infect their children with low self-esteem, jealousy, and hatred. Noah has no answer for these people, and that is the ultimate weakness of Ouroboros. Now, similarly, as much as he tried to hide it, Joran also had an inferiority complex. He felt so useless around people like Noah, Lanz, and Uni, since even with their flaws, these people were able to manifest what they imagine into tangible skills. Joran may be a little bit like Shania, trying to use art to express his pent-up frustrations. One day, he sat down and started carving up an image of himself as Moebius, because just like Shania, he envied the power and freedom Moebius enjoyed. After all, Moebius had the freedom to carve themselves from the ground up, to be whomever they want, something this world continuously robbed them of. See, Joran was getting punched in the face, not just by Lanz, but also by life. By nature, he was a chubby and clumsy fella, never really interested in fighting or healing or anything like that. Did Joran know exactly what he wanted to do in life? Did Ionios give Joran the choice to begin with? I don't think so. Maybe becoming a Moebius could fill the void inside him. Amid the rubble and the flames, Joran felt that his life was lesser than Lanz. He pushed him and killed himself just to feel appreciated by his friends. Finally, to not be so useless anymore, he thought, so that his pathetic life, so to speak, meant something at the end.
Why did you do it? Trade your life for mine? You could have ignored me, got away safe.
Maybe if I die instead of him, I'll please him? Perhaps that's what I was thinking.
Noah was correct in that we need to understand why it happened, why Joran became Moebius, and only by moving on from blaming ourselves or pointing the finger at others can we truly start asking the right questions. And the best way to understand Joran is the mud puppets.
Everyone deals with things in their own way.
Is that right? And why are you acting all normal? It was Joran. He looked just like his old self.
I suppose you think you're the reason for that, do you?
Huh?
In that case, I'm telling you to drop it right now. So Joran turned up. That alone isn't so bad.
Of course it is!
Figuring out why it happened. That's what we should do.
What do you mean, why it happened?
The reason we became Ouroboros. The reason the world looks like this. It's all connected. I'm sure of it.
Or maybe you just want it that way.
Better than being stuck in the past.
I won't. I can't. I'll never snuffing forget.
Phrases like "long time no see," "I miss you," or "you forgot about me." All these sayings that have to do with time, they ring so insufferably hollow when you have only 10 years on the clock. They don't feel sincere, at least in Ionios. See, Joran always felt uneasy around people his entire life, never really knowing what they actually thought about him, whether they said they liked him out of pity or if they actually meant it. How could someone like Joran anyways? Why? These were the sort of thoughts that he was having in his mind. As Mithra said to Adam in Torna, he believed that everyone masked their hearts with lies.
He seemed very human, protecting his heart with a mask of lies.
Unable to trust the sincerity of even his childhood friends, he now had the ability to take people's memories and turn them into mud puppets. He could finally trust in the words he contacts with. No lies, no insincerity. He no longer had to worry about what other people think of him, as he could directly peer into their souls. The mud puppets couldn't lie with their hearts, and this sense of control and power is what made Joran accept the life of a Moebius, which would mean Isurd definitely had a part of himself that blamed Taion for Nimue's death. But I think Isurd is still a good guy. If he could spend a bit more time with Taion, he would most likely move past these petty feelings of vengeance and blame. After all, we all have these moments, times when we feel bitter or insecure, times when pointing the finger outside feels justified. But as the saying goes, for every finger you point towards others, 3 fingers point right back at you. Ultimately, Joran's puppets were no different than the shadow personas of Rex's party unearthed by the architect in Elysium. In a sense, you are peering into people's souls, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all these people are, which is why the architect took the time to speak with them directly, even after seeing the darkness within. To understand Joran, we need to understand Lanz, as he was low-key disappointed seeing how only 6 people could become Ouroboros and the rest toiling away would never hope to reach the fabled horizons they strived for. The lost numbers weren't all that different from what they experienced in Ionios, which is an insight that will support Chris's observation. In the rich tapestry of life, seeing the majority that would never break through, Lanz realized, maybe for the first time, that maybe there is more to life than just fighting. This guy right here, throwing balls, changed everything for him. He was a breath of fresh air in an environment where everyone was so serious. He was an artist, an entertainer like the actors of our times. By catching the balls in the air, he experienced the thrill of mastery, expressing himself just like Shania did with drawing. We are at war here. Why isn't he fighting, you might say? Well, who decides what has merits? Who is making these rules? See, even pointless things can have a point down the line.
You call that a job?
Hey, you're Ouroboros, right? I've heard. I suppose my job doesn't really compare to yours, I'll admit.
Why are they on your case?
Street performance. It's not allowed on this road.
Street performance?
This stuff. Around this spot, this is where you get the best crowds. But still they like to push me around.
Do you not need to be fighting?
The city's army is just for volunteers. There's plenty who are willing.
Why's that?
Because it gets you others' approval.
Yeah, well, it would, wouldn't it?
You think so?
You don't?
Well, who decides what has merit? And whoever's making the rules, how do we know they're right? I mean, I don't really know anything. It's just...
Uh-huh.
I think... Isn't it fine if there's like one guy who makes the call for himself? You know?
Even if it ends up being pointless?
Hey, even pointless things can have a point. Down the line. I want to live my way. Take it one step at a time, the way I want. Really live.
Life used to be much easier when all Lanz needed to do was fighting, bashing heads, no thinking, no nothing. He knew what was expected of him. It was a simple life, being a soldier. Compare that with now seeing people like Shania torn by society's expectations of her, or the ball guy who is so comfortable in his own skin doing what he loved despite the pressure that it's a lot more complicated to answer what the good life is, what is right or wrong. Was fighting something Lanz did because he actually valued it, like Ethel and Kamaravi, or just he fought because he was good at it? Now, after the team followed the scent of large cradle shipments, they were ambushed by second-term Kavesi troops, where Garvel was leading them, Lanz's childhood rival. He now represented the ideology of survival of the fittest, not unlike what Lanz believed in. How winning was the most important thing, how life was all about strength and force. This special flame clock was designed so that the last one standing would use the life force of his fallen allies to strengthen himself. The weak, like the Jorans and Shanias of the world, would no longer be a burden, but merely a stepping stone at the heels of the strong. It is so sad that Garvel was so brainwashed that all he knew was fighting. All he was good for was fighting. And when he was relieved of his duty to kill after Noah cut down the flame clock, Garvel no longer knew what to do with himself. Lanz could easily relate.
No more stealing of lives. No more charity from consuls. What are you on about? Get snuffed. You're talking out your ass. Don't have to fight. Fighting is all that we know. If we don't have that, then what the snuff are we supposed to do? Tell me, what do we do now?
No one can answer that question. Instead of stealing lives, maybe you can guard them. How you will do that is up to you. You don't have to fight if you don't want to. Maybe you will cook, maybe you'll be a gardener, maybe you'll be a basketball coach, who knows? As long as you do something meaningful with your life, doing things in line with your values, that's all that matters at the end. People who are on the same path will be attracted to you. You will make friends. You will enrich other people's lives in your own way. And Lanz knew that now. Just like the performer, Lanz realized he doesn't need to strive for more to be satisfied. That just as Chris said, he could be just content with his lot. When you become a Moebius, you're treated to all the memories of your past lives, and Joran met the same sad end in all of them. While Noah and Lanz tried to persuade Joran that his past lives were all coincidences and they thought how awesome he was, it just didn't sound sincere at all. In fact, I want you to listen carefully. It felt like Lanz was saying it just to make himself feel good, which is exactly why Joran shrugged it off immediately. Even at this moment, I think he didn't feel understood at all.
Those were all just coincidences. We know different.
That's right. We thought... No, I knew for sure that you were awesome.
Whatever. Bet you were well and truly fed up with me. Although, back on that day, I still managed to surpass you. I can still be here. Feel this rush.
Look at Ouroboros. Must be nice to be strong, as Joran was a worm crawling in the dirt. He wanted to fly, with every single day looking up to the birds freewheeling above. And whenever Joran expressed his discontentment, the birds would say, "But Mr. Worm, you do such great work tilling the soil. It is really important that you keep at it for the sake of the world." It was as if the mommy was giving a lollipop to the crying baby to just shut him off. That was the last thing Joran wanted to hear. But despite all this, maybe what Joran missed is that being a bird was just as constraining as being a worm in this world. Noah, Lanz, and Uni, maybe they were like birds to Joran, but just as he was forced to crawl his way through dirt, they were forced to fly in the movie of Moebius' making. They were all in the same boat, in a sense. The birds and the worms were all actors in their theater. Bunch of pixels moving on the screen at their amusement. Maybe they were all weak.
I wanted my wings, you bastard! I thought if only I could earn your approval, it'd be like an updraft I could soar on.
But birds, what can they possibly know
Of how a lonely worm feels.
And yeah, maybe to you we were like birds. But that has nothing to do with strength. Only lack of choice.
Lack of choice?
Just look at how the world is for us. It would never allow us to take any other form. So we have to change it. For weak people like us.
Weak? You're weak?
On that day, Weren't you smiling?
Oh yes, I sure was smiling, because it was the moment I rose above you!
It was a grin of victory!
No, it wasn't. Look, you'd made it, Joran. You spread your true wings.
Joran. Your death, it changed me. Fighting isn't everything. I learned that if I chose, I could change myself, become anything. Joran, I'm grateful as spark to you.
Ain't you the same, Joran? Maybe if you had the choice too, in a world where nothing has to be like this.
Here is a question for you. On that day, why was Joran smiling? What was the true meaning behind the smile? Moebius are an entity bound by the confines of this world, strong, yet somehow fragile, harvesting their lives to cling to life, stopping time. Why bother? Because Moebius can't be brought back after death. Each of them are fundamentally aware of this, which is why they were afraid of death. What lies beyond death that Moebius feared so? The key that Ouroboros holds, as Nia said, that smile might be it. Despite how he looked right now, Joran was an Ouroboros at heart, just like them. That smile was when Joran truly spread his wings. Lanz was never the same afterwards. He realized that fighting isn't everything. He saw people from different perspectives. He realized that you can manifest your own reality as Ouroboros, and Joran had that right too. Lanz was wrong in making him feel like a worm. And maybe that's precisely why Ouroboros is now working towards a world where no one is forced to crawl in the dirt or fly in the sky by force. It is my hope that after this in-depth exploration of Shania and Joran, maybe you can see not just the shortcomings of Moebius, but also some of the flaws in Ouroboros as well. As Chris says, how the desire for betterment, even for the greater good, has flaws. How there are reasons why Joran and Shania felt the way they did. How Moebius are functionally solving a problem for these people in Ionios, even if it is not healthy in the long term. This new world of origin that Noah wants to create is not some magic pill. It is just one step in the right direction. Always remember that whatever obstacles you faced in Ionios will also arise in Origin's new world, and just as Zed says, when that time inevitably comes, who will be there to soothe you?
We'll claim the future and shape it ourselves!
And when you cannot choose, what then? In that desperate moment, who will be there to soothe you?
Zed and the other Moebius. They wanted to protect the world too.
That's why they created one they could control. I see where they were coming from.
That's something that we feel almost every day.
Having to change. To continue to change. That's sparking scary.
I know that this was a dense video, but I feel like I had to make Chris's perspective justice. The concept of Moebius, Shania, Joran, Chris, these characters are also hated and misunderstood by the community at large, that it is my hope this analysis clarifies the developer intent and also help you look at Xenoblade 3 in less black and white goggles, that you also see the rich gray that resides within. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe. Comment below if you want to see another Xenoblade analysis. Watch my latest Ionios essay and Xenoblade 2 analysis right here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.